Yes, nice to see a few of you. And thank you for coming and joining us on a webinar about EOceans and specifically the project, How Are Our Oceans Behaving During COVID-19? And how you can get on board and help us understand what is happening throughout. Here are just a few of the projects Eva and I are affiliated with. So you will hear 4 voices throughout this webinar. That would be me and Eva, the PIs for Iceland, and then also Ronnie and Christine, who will introduce themselves a little bit later on. A few of you might know me already. I am Babsi. I'm originally from Germany, but I was fortunate enough to start as a whale watching guide in 2016 in Iceland, and I have never left. I personally have a huge interest in citizen science already for like over 5 years when I did my master's at Wageningen University, where I wrote a thesis on how the citizen science development was impacting cetacean research at that time. And ever since then, I've been working in Iceland and in the polar regions as naturalist on board of different types of vessels and have been collaborating with different cetacean and citizen science projects throughout. And right now I'm doing a second master's in marine and coastal management at the University Center of the Westfjords. And with that, I will hand over to Eva, I would say.
So hello everybody, my name is Eva. I've been coming to Iceland for the last 5 years and I moved here last year, and I've been working as a whale watching naturalist, guide, researcher, skipper, basically anything to do with the ocean for the last 8 years now. I actually did my undergraduate degree with the University of Iceland studying cetacean acoustics in Skáfandi Bay. And then I moved on to do my master's degree where I studied Atlantic blue whales at the University of Cambridge. And I was really lucky to be able to do that in collaboration with the British Antarctic Survey and the Scott Polar Research Institute as well. When I moved to Iceland, Babsi got in touch and let me know about obviously all the awesome work that EOceans are doing. And that's when I got involved as one of their PIs for the south of Iceland. And I'm just so incredibly excited to see, where this can go and all the data that gets collected from everybody and what that output is.
Hi everyone, I'm Christine Wardpage. I am the founder of EOceans, and I'm on the call because I'm a marine scientist and I've led many global studies on the ocean, collaborative studies on the ocean. And I had the idea of recruiting and working with scientists around the world and field observers around the world to study our ocean in COVID-19. And I'm also in charge of developing the software that we're using, the mobile app and the software that we're using for this project. So EOceans was founded with the belief that our ocean can be radically more exciting and valuable if we make faster and more collaborative discoveries. And we're building the platform to make that happen. And as you'll see later on, the observations are collected through a mobile app, and we've envisioned that each observation, even if it's of a clean, empty ocean or a breaching whale, all those observations are tiny little pieces of the puzzle of the dynamic ocean. And we stitch these pieces of the puzzle together to understand the local, regional, national, and global scales of patterns of the ocean. Back to you. Is this Eva or Babsi?
I can take it, that's fine. So what we're looking at doing here is really making you guys who are listening interested in using the EOceans app and participating by recording your data, whether that be the most awesome sighting of your life or whether it's nothing, because no data is still data, and by using the EOceans app to log that in and around the Icelandic area and the ocean surrounding it. So here is Iceland in these 2 green circles. The top left is in Ísafjörður, where Babsi is located. So she's going to be the principal investigator for the north of Iceland. And I'm currently located in the capital of Iceland in Reykjavik. So I'm going to be doing everything for the south of Iceland. And essentially, we really want to find out what's happening in Iceland and how COVID is impacting our waters. So to tell you a little bit more information, so an article that recently got published in Nature by Rutz et al. Coined this term anthropause, which is actually a period of unusually reduced human mobility, which is what is happening during this pandemic. There's a lot of results and impacts that the pandemic has had, and one of those has been a lot of field work has unfortunately had to be abandoned. This is particularly the cases in more remote regions like the poles, in Antarctica, for example. And there's this huge misconception at the moment that nature is getting a break from humans during the COVID-19 pandemic. And actually what we're seeing in many rural areas, particularly in the tropics, they're facing increased pressures from things like land grabbing and deforestation, maybe illegal mining and wildlife poaching. For example, in Asia in particular, there's been a lot of notes of increased deforestation and the illegal miners and loggers encroaching on indigenous territories, which is obviously not what we want to be seeing. There's actually also been some anecdotal observations, especially from metropolitan areas, suggesting nature has responded to the lockdown. There not only seem to be more animals than usual, but maybe some more surprising ones in things that aren't necessarily seen every day. For example, different animals like pumas have been spotted in downtown Santiago in Chile. Moving on to more warmer regions, in Florida, they found a sizable benefit to loggerhead sea turtles. And that's actually increased in the breeding and the rate of them laying eggs, which is really cool to see. While some researchers have to be put on pause, others has happened because of COVID. For example, there's a lot of research out of UC Santa Cruz going on about how boat traffic is impacting ocean life, particularly with whales in Monterey Bay. And that moves on to our next slide, which talks about the impacts of fake news as well. There was some articles around Easter time last year that went around saying, oh my goodness, loads of dolphins, returned to Italy's canals. It turned out this footage wasn't actually from Italy itself. And Nat Geo posted an article saying, look, guys, don't believe everything that you're reading in the media. And obviously trash is always a problem, COVID or non-COVID. I'm actually going to pass over to Babsi now, who's going to talk about some Iceland specific issues that have been happening.
Yes, so if we go one slide further, if you were looking into news in regards to COVID-19 and Iceland and our oceans, surprisingly not that much has been published. The biggest thing being, I don't know if you here in Easterfjord remember it, but there was the crew of a fishing vessel, Julius Germundsson, actually was infected with COVID. Over 20 out of 25 crew, and the captain failed to actually mention it. So they came into port and they had to be locked on the ship until they were out of quarantine. Iceland had an international comparison. People say they had a pretty good response to it. We're pretty strict. You see a headline from the Reykjavik Grapevine down here. The tourists who broke quarantine were actually facing fines. And of course, if we talk about tourism, that's maybe the biggest impact COVID had, so to speak, also on the coastal areas, because all of a sudden tourism went down. If you look at the graphics from Statistics Iceland on the right-hand side, we are now down by minus 98%, which is obviously not surprising, but it means just a lot less people using the ocean and also gaining access to the ocean, which is a very interesting aspect, versus in other countries, you do see that local people are hammering beaches. Beaches need to be closed off. And here in Iceland, we have not experienced that as much. Same COVID impact on wildlife interactions. The only thing that really made the news was that actually the minks in Iceland, which unfortunately had to be culled in other countries, are luckily COVID free. So that is the only sort of wildlife COVID related news. But either there is nothing happening, which I can't believe, but if it wouldn't be, it would be great to document it, to have Iceland as a sole example. Or if something's happening, it's very important that we collect data right now. Because if you go one slide further, we had, if we go one back, I think we jumped just over one. Yeah, because if you look at the situation once again before COVID-19 started, we had, of course, the over-tourism factor on Iceland. If you look at the cruise ships here in Akureyri, I remember it's a town in the north of Iceland where I used to live, and I remember days where basically the population of that town with 18,000 people just doubled. And of course, whale watching emerged more and more. Any kind of tourism operations that were happening are not happening right now. So it would be very interesting to see when tourism then picks up afterwards again, what kind of, if it has an impact, what kind of impact it would have. Plus, of course, the trash issue. It's actually a nice trash picture if you think about it on the right-hand side. But that is a huge struggle for Iceland in general, if you have more people, how to deal with all this trash. But still we see here, of course, unfortunately, also masks being washed ashore, etc., etc. So just in that light, it will be super interesting to document right now what is happening if not many people are here, if the tourism isn't there. And we have right now the chance to really create or collect this baseline data. And for that purpose, we really would like to quantify what is actually happening in real time through this EOceans app today. So you could get on board, and the idea would be, here you see a global heat map of EOcean data being submitted, or data being submitted through the EOceans app in real time. And the idea would be to not have Iceland there standing alone with no submission, but actually make it glow. Actually have, ideally speaking, real-time data every day being submitted through the app. And how can you do that? We have this mobile application that allows you for real-time data collection and even offline. But the video will tell you more about it.
The ocean economy is valued at $1.5 trillion per year, providing essential products and services to 1 billion people. Many threats, like plastic pollution, ship collisions, and overfishing, have significant costs. On the other hand, there is ample opportunity to celebrate. Billions have been spent on conservation. Species have come back from the brink of extinction. Fisheries have improved. Tourism has value. Protected areas have grown. Although marine researchers work hard to track these changes, a lack of data means their discoveries often lag years behind ocean change. EOceans can help. Our platform was designed by Dr. Christine Ward-Page, an expert in crowdsourcing ocean data. Our mobile app allows all ocean explorers to become scientists by simply logging what they see. Our analytical tools provide researchers with real-time insights to monitor oceans by species, areas, and issues. Through our community feature, explorers follow how their data are being used to answer complex questions. EOceans is on a mission to help communities and researchers make real-time discoveries to celebrate success, or to mitigate and adapt to change on timescales that keep pace with business, society, and ocean change. Contact EOceans to get a team started in your community today. For the oceans, for us.
Thanks, Babsi and Eva, for that very enlightening conversation and information about what's happening and what's kind of not happening in Iceland during this time. I agree, Babsi. I think the most interesting insight might be what it looks like without your tourism that normally happens during this season. And I look forward to seeing the data that you and your community collect together. So our call to action, our desire for everybody who's listening and tuning in today or watching this recording is that to be a part of this project by downloading the EOceans app, tracking your activities, logging your observations, sharing what you are seeing, and following along with the project as we start to generate results. So the EOceans app is an activity tracker for you to log your at-sea activities, how long you're doing it, what type of activities you're doing, and also what you're seeing while you are out at sea. So when you open the EOceans app for the first time, you will have to make the decision between choosing between a single observation or auto track or transect observation. Currently, the app, if you download it right now, you will just see the option for a single observation, but the transect function is coming soon, and I will explain the difference between the two. The single observation is great for capturing a moment in time. So this is excellent if you are just by the ocean for a short moment. Say you're driving by and you decided to just pull over and take a quick snapshot. Or the transect function is useful if you were doing a continued activity on or by the ocean. So say if you are walking the beach from point A to point B, perhaps doing a beach cleanup, you would set the transect and then you would just log what you see as you go. This helps track effort and how long you are doing that activity for. This is also a great option for when you're on a boat, either for research or leisure. Next, going from left to right on your screen, you will be asked to take a photo. This photo does not have to be a close-up of what you're logging, and it does not have to include everything that you are seeing. It just needs to provide context. So a simple photo of even the horizon is enough to know what you are seeing and the area of what you are seeing it in. When you take a photo, the app will log your date, time, and GPS location. This ensures the real-time aspect of your data, that what you are seeing is exactly what is happening in the moment you are logging it. And then your activity, what are you doing as you're logging this observation? Whether you're sailing, walking, or scuba diving, it's going to change the context of your logs. Next, you will be recording the animals or the species you see. We have a drop-down list of 500,000 species, common names included, also with the option to choose unknown if you don't know what you're looking at. So perhaps you know it's a shark, but you don't know the specific species of shark. There is an option to choose that as well. And then counts. How many of that species are you observing at that time? And if you're seeing no species, that is perfectly fine and a perfectly valid data to record as well, because zeros and absences are just as important. You would hit skip, that button down at the bottom of your screen. And either way, if you recorded species or not, you would then be asked to record your human observations. So human observations include what other people are doing in the ocean area that you are in. So if you see maybe 10 other beach walkers, for instance, this is where you would record that, as well as any anthropogenic or human-generated pollution. So personal protective gear or PPEs like masks and gloves have been something that's been highly reported throughout this time, and this is where you would record that. After you've done that, you'll get a summary of your observation for you to review, and also a place for you to add some notes to further add context to your log and your observation. This can be for your own personal usage of maybe recording the temperature, or it was a great day by the water, or perhaps if you're using the app for research, perhaps there might be some critical notes you could add in there for your further analysis. But this is also a good place to tell us a little bit more about perhaps how your human observations and your wildlife observations are interacting. So perhaps you recorded a whale and you also recorded some ghost gear or some loose fishing gear. But what was actually happening was that it was a whale entanglement. And this is where you could tell us this and use a hashtag. So you could put hashtag whale entanglement, and we are currently building out the tool so that it alerts the right people to this entanglement so that people can go and assess the situation. After you have finished your observation, or if you're no longer at the beach but are curious to know what's happening in your community elsewhere, you can check it out on your community channel. So this feature will be released in our newest update coming very soon. And you will be able to see the teams that are working on the Our Ocean and COVID-19 project. There will be a team for you to join for Iceland, as well as some individual observations that are happening in and around your area. Along with the mobile app, you can also have access to a dashboard or the web application. This can be accessed on your desktop browser. And this is where you can see EOceans' effort globally. So you can kind of explore around and see where other people are logging EOceans data. It's also a place for you to retroactively change some of your observations. If perhaps you went home and realized you logged the incorrect species, you could change that here, as well as add some photos that you did not take with your phone. So perhaps you were underwater and you would like to add some underwater photos to your log. You could do that here as well. Additionally, if you were interested in analyzing your data, we do offer that for you to upgrade and download your data for analysis. A key point about EOceans is that the data you log is your own. It is up to you to decide who you want to share that data with. So currently, as you're using the app, you are deciding to share it with the Our Ocean and COVID-19 project, which is our pilot project for this application. But then as the app gains in popularity and functionality, we hope that more people will use it to answer questions that they're interested in. And then you, as a collaborator, as a user, get to decide which research questions you align most with. And then you manually join the team that is answering those research questions, and your data will filter to them. You will also get updates about what your data is used for and see the results as they're generated in real time. I will pass that back off to Eva to talk a little bit about the frequently asked questions.
So one of the main things to emphasize here is EOceans and the app in general is for anybody and everybody wanting to get involved, make a difference and log their observations. One of the really important things to note is it does actually work offline. So as long as you've downloaded it while you're online, and then everything will sync also when you're reconnected again, but you can actually collect that data offline. And that works for when it's recording the GPS locations too, which is particularly awesome. And you don't actually need to take a photo of everything you see, but as Ronnie was alluding to earlier, you just need to take a photo of the area to provide the context of what's happening and, you know, where you're logging. For example, if you're logging a whale recording, we would just want to make sure that the picture isn't you jumping in the water and taking a selfie with them. It's all respectful and it's done at a responsible distance. Another frequently asked question that we get is about observations. And it doesn't matter if you see, you know, the best sighting of your life and you really want to record it and add your pictures to that observation, or if they see no animals at all. Just because you see no animals doesn't mean you shouldn't record it. It's actually really important. And like Ronnie was saying about the zero data, to have that information and to know that no wildlife was sighted there. And the next slide, please. So one of the ways that you can get involved and become an ocean partner to help spread the word is we're looking for people in small organizations, whether it's from, you know, grassroots up to those really large ones, particularly so in Iceland, to get involved with EOceans. So if you are part of an organization or are running an organization that would like to help spread the word, become a part of the conversation and get involved, please do reach out to one of the four of us, either at the end of this talk or you can send us an email later, and we'd love to have that conversation with you and to get you involved. As part of that, we'll also promote you on our website as well. Then in a more general basis, to anybody who maybe isn't part of an organization, there are so many options for you to also get involved on a global scale, especially during COVID. There's so many options to share with friends and family via social media and social networking, as well as different communities you may be a part of online. The more EOceans is shared, the more visibility we get and the more data that is ultimately being logged. If you aren't by the ocean and you still want to get involved, you can get involved by joining things like our public Facebook group, Our Ocean in COVID-19, and share news from what's going on in your local area and share other articles that are happening. There are definitely lots of people with different skill sets, different interests. So please feel free to reach out to us directly if you would like to have a chat or you have any particular ideas that you would like to share with us. And we love to hear from our community and to hear from you. And it's inspiring to see what's going on around the world, and particularly for Babsi and I, what's going on in Iceland. So it's really great to see people becoming actively involved with EOceans and how they're using it. So this is just a reminder of some of the affiliations that Babsi and I have, and here we have a list of email addresses. So if you would like to reach out to any of us, either directly after this talk or once you've had time to process all of the information, please feel free to do so. And I would like to open the floor to any questions.
Instead of waiting for silence, I will ask a few questions. It looks like we have one. This is great. I can't help but think, so you mentioned the lack of tourists and the lack of cruise ships. What kind of things might we expect to see a change in? So in other countries around the world, we've seen that the lack of tourists and lack of cruise ships has meant, more whale observations, but also a change in fishing and a change in other local, so especially fishing inside of marine protected areas. And then along that, is there anyone that's nearby the shore, has been along the shore, that could maybe speak to it anecdotally and then start to collect data moving forward? Babsi or?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting question. So fisheries in Iceland, you do not have that much artisanal or small scale fisheries, because it's all regulated by a quota system. And it's so hard to put Iceland in a global context, I always find, because Iceland has not that many inhabitants, right? So it's not so much of an issue that tourism would actually cause more artisanal fisheries to go out, or fishermen who used to work now for tourism, that they would go out and fish more again, because it is also highly regulated. So that would be interesting to see. The only impact fisheries have been facing was, of course, a problem in the supply chain induced by COVID-19. Here we have more the issue of aquaculture projects that they do want to implement on almost every fjord around Iceland. How that will play out, but it will be very interesting, but it's not directly related to COVID-19.
So then on that note, then a change in the supply chain, could that have limited the number of vessels that went out fishing? Was there a drop in the amount of fishing to correspond with the drop in supply chain?
They did not have a drop in fishing as such. They just had to hold it back longer, which again, because they do want to mainly export also fresh fish. There's only a 14-day of cod shelf life, for example. They had a few issues at the beginning of the pandemic, but as far as I'm concerned, that has been sort of solved. And for now, the biggest impact we found was, of course, COVID-related issues or COVID cases on board of fishing vessels.
Right. So then thinking about the population of Iceland, given that there's few people compared to other coastlines, last week we were on a call with a webinar in California where the coastline has many people living along the coastline. Who might be the best people who can view the ocean and being able to support your project with observations, and who would be your strongest collaborators, I guess?
Well, of course, there are many small communities along Iceland, and then there are great projects all around Iceland that are actually looking. We have right now Belen, for example, calling in, and she's doing a great job and raising awareness, for example, about plastic pollution. There are other possibilities, I would say. Once tourism starts again a little bit, then of course you have the normal tourism traffic again, or the normal whale watching operators. But it will be reduced as well. So that will be a challenge, for example, for data analysis, right? That we potentially have less data being submitted now while there's nobody coming in, versus when we have hopefully more and more people coming to Iceland again. But it could be the opposite as well, that people have time and go out, walk along the shore. South coast might be easier than, for example, the West fjords. There are some fjords where nobody's living in these fjords. But then it's important, if you drive by, you can just take a video.
That's right. I think you raised a good point, is that it's going to change. So the impact of COVID on the oceans and coastlines is highly dynamic and variable. You know, every county, every country is very different. So looking at the trends in Iceland and comparing that to trends in other places, you know, it may be a control, it may be, you know, looking for the trends back to a new normal is going to be an interesting part of this project. So I'll pass it over to anyone else that has questions, because I could probably go on all day. And then back to Ronnie.
I think we did have a question in the chat. Rodrigo was asking about how all of the huge amount of apps that are currently developed, especially for some specific needs like cetaceans in Iceland and northern bottlenose whale sightings, why this one? Why EOceans? I think everyone, you know, Christine, myself, and all of our PIs could probably add something slightly different to this answer. So in my response, EOceans is unique because we add in the human dimension to ocean observation. So many apps are designed to specifically look at wildlife, where we are also interested in how humans are using the interacting with the ocean and how that might impact wildlife. The platform is also designed to answer more than one question at once, and maybe Christine could delve a little bit deeper into that one.
Yeah, it's a very good point. So when I started this, I started off with eShark. That was in the mid 2000s. I had eShark, and then I had eManta, and then this was as a PhD student. And then there became many shark apps and seahorses and turtles and whales, and then others for ghost gear and garbage. And a lot of times, some of these organizations were then asking me to analyze the data. So it's one thing to collect the data and put it into somewhere, but it's another thing to actually analyze and interpret the data. But I was very slow to develop an app or any software because there were so many apps coming out. A lot of them are open source. And for a lot of places in the world, open source data isn't really a suitable solution, because species and special places are still targeted and there's no enforcement to protect those areas. So with EOceans, it's your data, and then you can decide who you want to share it with. So if you want to share it to different projects, you can do whatever you want with it. So it's yours. We don't make the decision for you of who you share the data with. And so that's, I think, the difference that is meaningful to me, at least, and the people that I've talked to. Thanks so much for that question.
I don't know, Babsi or Eva, if you have anything to say to that about why this app might be useful for Iceland. Or not, you know, we covered a lot in the webinar.
Well, I personally am always interested in human-nature relationships, right? Because that is what shapes the coastal communities around Iceland. And I see, as you said, the chance in EOcean to add the human component to it. Because, yeah, we can so often say, okay, we see, I don't know, X amounts of birds on the shoreline, but actually, if we would know, okay, but there are 40 tourists taking pictures around them and they are still there, that's valuable information, right? So it's the human component, I guess, or the point of view this app is providing.
To add to that as well, I think not only is it the human component, but it's also how COVID and, you know, the pandemic and the severe lack of tourists in Iceland right now, or at least, you know, significantly reduced amounts, how that's impacting the wildlife. And it would just be fantastic to get that baseline of data. So, you know, what's Iceland like right now, and then compare it to, say, in a year's time when the tourists are back again, you know, touch wood. And just to see what those differences are with the wildlife and that human interaction, so that, you know, bring that citizen science into it again.
Thank you. Great. Glad we answered your question, Rodrigo. There's still some time if anybody would like the floor. If not, we can wrap it up, and that's great too. we really appreciate Eva and Babsi. Thank you so much for joining us and leading this webinar and this project in Iceland. Christine and I are based in Atlantic Canada, so we can't be there. We can't know what you are seeing. So it's invaluable for us to know what you and your community are experiencing during this time and into the new normal. We will be doing another set of these webinars by ocean basin, and it's going to be a little bit more of a broad perspective, combining a couple of the countries that we are working with together, and it will probably also include some updates on the project, and possibly some results have been generated by then. So stay tuned, keep an eye out for when those webinars would be. The best way is to sign up for our newsletter on our website. You can access that there. And then I also wanted to make a quick call out to potentially take a look at our social media. We are in an interesting conservation tech challenge right now, and we are hoping to add a couple of new features to the EOceans app in the way of a digital field guide. So making our app even more useful for building confidence in citizen science reporting and also data quality. So that's all I'll say about that. But if you're interested, we have a couple different points about it on our social media, on our website, and it's what we'll be talking about for about a month. So you'll probably get a lot of information about it. Again, thank you so much, and we hope to see you soon and again.